Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Sister Wives with Mary Jane Kay. Today, I'll be breaking down Season 2, Episode 11 of my Sister Wives rewatch, Sister Wives in the City of Sin. To my YouTube viewers, please hit that like button and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I do want to point out that Robin's tagline this episode has shifted from her initial tagline of, "The wives work together, I want to be a part of that team," to, "It seems like destiny, like we should have all been together from day one." Interestingly, day one of Cody's plural marriage was when Cody and Mary married Janelle in 1993. Robin was born in 1978. So Robin would have been just 15 years old at that time. Obviously, Robin didn't mean that literally, but it's interesting to consider that when Janelle and Cody married Robin, Robin was just in high school. There are endless stacked boxes outside the rental house. Mary is slowly hauling in some of those boxes as some of the kids ride scooters and play amidst the chaos. Cody says since the family has become public about their faith, they've had a lot of tension in the family. They play a flashback of Robin nervously telling viewers how the police department is investigating the family to see if they will be charged with bigamy. They play a flashback of Maddie telling Cody at a family meeting that today a classmate asked her if her dad is going to jail. I've already mentioned this about a million times, but again, this threat is bullshit, and the Utah Attorney General and law enforcement also made clear in the media this investigation was more or less a formality, and unless there were other crimes going on, they wouldn't be bringing charges for polygamy alone. The policy was not to separate families or charge anyone for just living polygamy, unless other crimes like abuse or fraud were also being committed. So all of this threat and fear and we have to move, we're backed in a corner, I can't live free, this isn't the America I learned about in school, oh, a cop car drove by. All of it is for show. You can look in the media from that time and see statements by law enforcement and by the AG making clear they had no intention to bring other charges unless there were other crimes. It's a manipulation by TLC and by Cody, and it's very unfortunate that Cody felt comfortable in putting that burden on his kids when the threat was non-existent, just to get them united in the move and to create a storyline and stir emotions. I think Cody did this for drama and ratings and to look like he wasn't a selfish asshole who was uprooting his family for his own self-interests. I also think Cody wanted polygamy decriminalized in Utah, understandably, and it was. But notice only Christine moved back after divorcing Cody. Why won't Cody move back? Does he know he flaunted a crime, bigamy, in everyone's face? And then when the law enforcement had to go do their job knowing they can't look the other way or provide preferential treatment, even if it's a formality that they have to do this to be looking like they're doing their jobs, then Cody spoke out against the persecution and the intolerance and how can we not be fair? Woe is me, this isn't fair, we want to be free, we want tolerance. When the AG went on record in the media making clear there will not be charges for just bigamy or living polygamy. They have no interest in that. They have no interest in bringing charges for that or separating families unless other additional crimes are committed. And Cody still whined and griped and played victim about not being accepted and not having the freedom to live as he wants. He complains about the lack of tolerance for him and his family, when in his own religion, he practices people of color aren't allowed to hold priesthood positions or leadership positions in their church. So Cody wants tolerance for himself and his lifestyle. He doesn't want to feel persecuted for his beliefs. He wants tolerance, but his faith itself is intolerant with some of its teachings. And Cody had the privilege of knowing in the media there would be no charges brought unless there were other crimes like fraud or abuse, etc., being committed. So Cody ignored that and he made a storyline and he tried to make the law enforcement look bad. He ignored the policy, followed by Utah. He ignored the AG statements in the media, and he milked this fake threat, slapping officials in the face over and over with it when they told Cody he wasn't being charged. Cody is a manipulator, in my opinion, and a showman, and he probably isn't welcome in Utah after the way he behaved and all the lawsuits he filed. Cody says the chance that his family would be split up turned out to be too big of a risk. It's the Browns' first day at the vacation rental, and they have a lot of unpacking to do. Cody says now that they moved to Vegas, everything is different. It's a whole new world. They have to enroll the kids in school, and they only have 30 days in the rental house, and they have to still find homes. Cody says he feels born again in Vegas. They protected their kids a lot from the emotional effects of the investigation and the threat of it to the family and the ability they had to stay together, Cody says. The Browns filed a lawsuit, by the way, in federal district court in 2011 against the Utah governor, the Utah attorney general, and the Utah county attorney. In 2012, the Utah County Attorney's Office policy was formally announced, even though they had used it for years informally. Since that policy was announced, it eliminated any credible threat that the Browns would be prosecuted. So the court was asked to vacate its judgment in favor of the Browns since there was no credible threat. And in the documents, it is noted that it had been over 50 years since a polygamous family was charged for bigamy alone, unless other crimes like fraud or abuse were also occurring. Cody knew he was safe, in my opinion. He knew the policy, and the policy was formalized, even though it had been employed for a long time. The Browns' lawsuit judgment was vacated, and the case was dropped because there was no credible threat. Cody says when they arrived, the adults all felt relief. Cody was relaxing on a chair, daydreaming, staring out a window. It looked very posed, in my opinion. And Janelle says it's the first time in months she has seen Cody relax. Someone needs to get that man some weed, if that's actually the case. Mary, Phil's at home at the rental. The wives are trying to put everything away to get the house organized. Robin says her body was feeling like it was like home because she slept well that night and she hadn't slept well in months. And the next day, she even had an appetite. Robin lets viewers know she lost 15 pounds before they left. She had no appetite from all of the stress. And all of a sudden, she was hungry. Everything is about Robin and stuff about her for Robin. She never wonders how others are affected, and she never thinks of the whole family ahead of herself. Cody says the kids are a step behind them. They don't realize the weight of these potential threats because they were trying to protect the kids from it. That's not what it looked like on the show. When we saw the way he was putting the weight of that on the older kids. The little kids are excited. They are in a vacation home. They have no idea really what's going on. They're just happy they're in a new place and they get to have fun. Cody says it's light and fluffy with the little kids and it's free and at peace for the adults. But the teenagers are still bitter. Logan is tired and worn out. Maddie says they're away from home and they don't have school or a functional day-to-day schedule of something they can rely on. They don't have a permanent house to move into to unpack their things even. Leo says they are living in a vacation home out of suitcases. Robin says the investigation isn't gone, but it's a mindset for them. Nothing has changed on paper, she says, but it feels like a new beginning. Mary feels like the Browns, her family, have been guided down to Vegas. Robin says in the back of their minds, they worry because they only have the vacation rental for 30 days. Mona, the realtor, is trying to find homes that are close together. She says working with the Browns has been a challenge. The Browns want to be in one giant house, but that doesn't exist in Vegas. So she is trying to find 4 rental homes as close together as possible. The Browns were just supposed to take necessities with them and leave non-essential things to get later. there wasn't enough room in the trucks, as everyone recalls. And I noticed during an outside shot of the Browns' vacation rental in Vegas that Cody had room to bring his motorcycle. Remember when Peyton wanted his toys and it wasn't allowed because it wasn't necessary? 20 boxes of toys might be overkill. But is Cody's motorcycle an essential item? Cody was the loudest voice saying, just bring essentials, just bring essentials. There's not enough room in the trucks. I guess there was room for his motorcycle. Hunter says the house is crowded, but the living arrangements are good. Mary says it's a big house. They have 6 boys, 10 girls, and 5 adults in this 4-bedroom house. Each mother gets her own room since there are 4 bedrooms, but it's very cramped, of course. There's a huge master, though. Cody doesn't want to assign rooms to his wives. Robin jokes that if Cody did that, the wives might accuse him of having a favorite that he would assign the best room in the house to. Mary adds that when it comes to decisions that affect the 4 wives, Cody makes it a habit to leave the decisions to them. Christine announces she got the big room because she threw a fit, and all the wives talked about it, and since Christine had truly, she got the room. Mary and Robin joke. They go into Christine's room with soup labels, pretending to act menacingly to fight Christine for it. That night, they had a party to celebrate Cody's 43rd birthday, and Robin has never seen Cody that happy or calm. Everyone has a big birthday dinner and gives presents to Cody. Cody wants viewers to know he isn't the only one the wives make a big deal about for birthdays. The family has never had a forgotten birthday. Cody says he wants to show his kids appreciation on their birthdays. And Robin says when you have such a big family, you want each individual to feel special. After Cody and Robin got married, Cody wanted to have more kids. So he was pressuring Robin to consider having a baby. Robin was stressed by going public, so she wanted to wait a little bit. Then, after going public, the investigation was announced and it hit the Browns in the face. Cody says it threatened their safety and their security, so Robin said no at that time to having a baby. They weren't ready to have a baby in Utah, but when they got to Vegas, they were ready. Robin says they waited for so long. They had been married for 10 months. She asks Cody how long it's been because she's not sure. And Cody says a long time. I have 2 comments about this. One is the necklace Robin is wearing is incredibly gaudy and tacky. The chain is thick and the flower or pendant is huge and clunky. It looks very cheapo to me. Plus, she's wearing a very busy shirt. It's not even like a solid shirt with that very huge tacky necklace. It just doesn't go together. And normally I'm not like a fashion snob at all, but this was like distracting. I was like, oh my God, it hurt my eyes. My second thought is, Robin says they have been married 10 months, and she says it with a lot of hesitation, very questioningly. She's unsure of the length of time they've been married. And Cody, again, he responds, they've been married a long time at this point. In the pumpkin carving episode, that's season 2, episode 4, I believe, it was filmed in the end of October. And Robin says in that episode that they were married 5 months. And Robin clearly states that. Now it's January of the same season of the show, and it's Cody's birthday. And Cody's birthday is in January, sometime around mid-January, I believe. So by that point, if we're going around what Robin states in the show, that in October she was married 5 months, that would then be around 7.5 months of marriage. We know it's October during filming because it's the Halloween episode where Robin mentions that she has been married 5 months. Now, Robin asks if it's 10 months with hesitation, and Cody responds they've been married a long time. 7.5 months doesn't sound like a long time to me. It makes me wonder if they did a spiritual marriage way before the big wedding that we saw on TV. Let's remember, Christine got very upset upon finding out that Robin and Cody sealed their engagement on September 26th with a kiss. And per the book, Cody and Robin got engaged on September 26th. And Cody says they wouldn't marry for 6 months. But Christine didn't mention feeling upset at all when Cody kissed Robin twice during Truly's birth on April 13th, and they weren't married yet then either. Is it possible Cody and Robin were spiritually married 6 months after their engagement, as Cody states in the book, around March 26th, before Truly's birth? That could be why Christine didn't get upset by that kissing when she was so upset at learning about Cody and Robin sealing their engagement with a kiss just a little over 6 months before that point. Is it possible that Cody and Robin did the wedding for TV 4 months later, extending their TV courtship, and maybe that's why Christine didn't get so upset about that? All speculation on my part, of course, and I definitely could be wrong. A 10-month courtship, as Robin mentions it was on the show, would mean a wedding around July 26th, way past the 6-month engagement Cody mentions in the book. And Christine likely wouldn't have been too pleased with Cody kissing his fiancée during Truly's birth, unless Cody and Robin possibly were spiritually bound by that point. Now, I was very perplexed by Christine's lack of reaction on the show, and this is maybe possibly why. In my opinion, it is possible that Robin and Cody wed spiritually way before they did their TV wedding, and maybe that's why Cody is saying they've been married a long time, as Robin hesitantly says they've been married 10 months, unsure of the length of their marriage, because they have been married much earlier and for a longer period of time in a spiritual sense. But perhaps they dragged the courtship out on camera and did the TV wedding, of course. How could they have been married a long time if around Halloween, at the end of October, Robin stated they were married 5 months, and now it's mid-January of the same season, and it would be around 7.5 months of marriage according to Robin's TV show time frame. That's not a long time to be married, as Cody states. It also wouldn't add up to 10 months of marriage, as Robin hesitantly states. It's all speculation, of course, but the factors pointing to my speculation of an earlier spiritual marriage between Robin and Cody was Cody mentioning the 6-month engagement in the book, and Christine's lack of response or anger or frustration at Cody kissing Robin during Truly's birth, when Christine was very upset just 6 months earlier upon learning that Cody and Robin sealed their engagement with a kiss. Now, I understand Cody and Robin probably wanted to film the courtship and drag it out. Anyways, I digress. Cody and Robin say Vegas is different for them, and they feel relaxed and relieved in Vegas. Robin and Cody looked at each other and they decided that now they can try to have kids. It's their second day in Vegas and the Browns are looking for a storage unit to unload the stuff in the trucks. Priority number 1 for the Browns was finding 4 homes close together in the proper school district. I will never understand moving, especially with a family, before you find homes and are absolutely sure you have a permanent roof. This is nuts. It's so disorganized. The wives decided that Robin needed to be the first wife to get a house since her kids have moved around a lot. So they wanted to get Robin's kids in a home first. If it was me, I'd be most interested in making sure the older kids who are taking it the hardest and who are the most traumatized by the move get the homes first so they feel that stability. The realtor, Mona, found an area with a few houses for rent in the right school district that the Browns wanted. Mona drove around with Robin until she found a rental she liked. The school semester was starting in just 4 days, so the Browns were up against a wall, through no fault but their own, of course. Robin found a house on Friday, and Sunday they signed the papers, and they enrolled the kids in school on Tuesday. That's cutting it close. The vacation rental is a 30-minute drive from the area the Browns intend to live in, and it's a 30-minute drive from the school. On top of that, there are different shifts of kids, and it's their first day of school. There are different shifts with each age group starting at different times. So high school starts at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. is the middle school, 9 a.m. is the elementary school start time. Logan is nervous about his first day at school, and he's intimidated because it's a really big school, apparently, like the building itself physically. Maddie isn't nervous. She doesn't care. She doesn't want to make friends with people, she says. Now, sometimes Maddie says things that remind me of myself when I was her age, I have to say. That made me smile. The first day of school was also the day they moved Robin into her home. Robin, who got first dibs on a home, loves her house. It's homey, and she fell in love with it when she first walked in the door. And she is hoping to settle and nest and build a home environment in the rental. Robin hasn't decorated her house in a couple years because she has moved so much. So Robin says it will be nice to be in this house for more than 6 months. The wives spent the day unloading all the boxes and furniture and stuff into Robin's house, and then the kids got home from their first day of school. Leo says it was horrible. They hate school. Christine was nervous about how the day went for the kids. Logan says the place is huge. Maddie is all smiles, and she says her first day of school was all right. She likes the teachers. Mary walks up to Leo, and she is fussing with their hair, touching their face, and for me, it feels so suffocating watching it. I would be so annoyed if I had a mom who pet me and was glued to me every time I was around. She asks Leo if they made friends, and Leo says, yeah, a ton of best friends. And Mary has both hands on Leo's face telling them, don't be sarcastic. I would be like, can you please get the F off me? It would annoy the crap out of me to have someone like stroking me constantly, petting me, touching my hair. Oh my God. If I had a parent like stroke my hair or hold my face, it would annoy me. Just as I said that, I unpaused and Leo pushes their mom's hands away and aggravatedly asks Mary, will you stop? And they tell Mary that she is bugging them. And just for clarification for viewers, I didn't know this. I recently found out, but Mariah came out as transgender and they want to be called Leo with the pronouns they and them. So if anyone is wondering who the F Leo is, what am I talking about? Like being confused, is there a brown that was overlooked? Leo is Mariah, but I want to refer to Leo as who they are, with the right pronouns, of course. Maddie says she is going to be moving back to Utah soon as she can, she says. Cody thinks paying a mortgage on one big home will be a lot less expensive than paying rent on 4 little homes. But Cody doesn't want to talk about the math. And Christine says it will be expensive to rent or to buy or to have 4 separate homes. Janelle says their resources are finite and for sure it's scary. Cody says they have limited resources to make it work, so they have a big challenge ahead of them. Janelle says money is a big problem right now because they all lost all of their jobs with the move and they want to use their retirement to start a family business. But they have no idea what they will do right now. Mary feels like it's going to work out for them. She feels they have totally been led in this direction, and she means led spiritually by that, and she wonders how it's all going to work out. Christine says if they have to adjust their budgets, so be it. They need comfort for themselves and for their kids. They need security. They need stability. Christine says she knows it will take money, but the whole world is full of other things that are more important. I agree with her. Cody says they want the perfect scenario for their family. They got the cul-de-sac. They got the perfect scenario where every wife had their own household, but the homes were still close enough that all the siblings could interact and Cody could still tuck every kid in at night if he really wanted to. It was a great setup. It was a good situation. I don't know. They had the perfect situation in the cul-de-sac, in my opinion. And they moved to Flagstaff because Cody got antsy. And probably, in my opinion, somewhat because of Dayton going to college around that area and him having special needs, Robin may have wanted to be close to Dayton. We don't know. And even when the Browns get the perfect scenario, it seems to me that Cody always imagines there will be something bigger and better. He is never just happy or at peace. When everyone finds peace, Cody gets antsy and he has to move and create unnecessary chaos just to suit his boredom. I just think Cody gets bored and he assumes there's going to be something better somewhere else. Cody wants the kids, number one, to have access to each other easily. And the number 2 thing Cody wants is access to all of his kids. Mary thinks it's important too that the kids have access to all the moms as well. Christine says it's important for her to have access to all of the kids. She wants that. Christine, in my opinion, was the heart and the soul of this family, and she is all in, and she was always invested in the family and all in the family. And she prioritizes the kids and the big family when she was a part of this family ahead of her own interests. And she is very nurturing for the kids. And you can tell she would walk to the ends of the earth for the kids in that family. But I feel like she was so mistreated or unappreciated by certain people in the family. And it was like, in the end, Cody was being very manipulative with her and very controlling. And I think she felt so like marginalized and like she had no voice and like she had to leave. And I don't think the family will ever fully recover without its heart. Leo is struggling. They didn't want to move, and the kids are in a big new city and they don't have any friends yet. So they're hanging around the house and they're getting bored. Leo has a Utah learner's permit and it isn't valid in Vegas. But Leo asked their mom for the car keys to practice driving around the parking lot. Leo had to nag their mom for a bit because Mary didn't want to let them drive. Leo's mom doesn't like Leo driving alone. Maddie asks Leo, "You don't know why?" implying Leo is a bad driver. Maddie explains she had to join in because she was bored. They sat in the car and they did donuts all day. Maddie says she knows how to drive and she's good at it. And Leo says they are better though. Maddie says they think. Mary didn't watch them drive and she wonders if she should have. Maddie misses Utah. She wants to go back and she's trying to make herself happy while she is in Vegas. It's going to suck not living in the same house, she says. And Leo says they won't be able to see each other as often as they used to. They won't be able to just walk downstairs and see Christine. So it's going to be an adjustment, but they're going to have to make it work. Janelle found the next house of the bunch and she wasn't really looking. She assumed she would be the last wife to find one. And she was enjoying the vacation home. She figured she would let everybody else settle first. And Janelle found a house and she has a pool. Mona emailed the Browns a property she thought might work for Mary, and Janelle saw it and she refused to let herself be attached to it because she wanted to see how things worked out. The house felt very comfortable to Janelle and it felt like home for her. Janelle felt really bad. She liked the house so much and it was supposed to be meant for Mary. And Mary tells Janelle she shouldn't feel bad about liking it. And Janelle says she's the one who typically doesn't care much what the house looks like. And we know Janelle is the more practical one of the group. Janelle is excited. She likes the bedrooms and they're bigger than what she had before and the street is quiet, although she doesn't know what the neighbors will think of them. And Robin says it's funny because all of a sudden Janelle's excitement was leaking out of her. Robin says it's a fine balance between saying, "This is what I want and this is what I need," and at the same time offering it up onto the sister-wife altar saying, "Your needs are important too. So if you need something like this more than I do, then we will work it out." Robin says it's a balance of their needs versus your needs and your wants versus their wants and respecting each other's needs and wants. It's interesting that Robin says this because she always seems to put her needs and wants ahead of the needs and wants of her sister wives or the larger family. Her marriage to Cody is her priority, and what she needs and wants always seems to come first, on the show at least. She got the first rental in Vegas because her kids needed it. They moved so much. So Robin came first. When the sister wives and Cody argued what day to move, Cody suddenly went to Robin's house and insisted they would leave when Robin preferred, even though Cody's other wives felt differently, and they outvoted Cody and Robin, and Cody still insisted on his way and Robin's way. And Mary even called Cody out, asking if this was the decision just because he had just been at Robin's house and that was her preference. Janelle said in previous episodes they operate as a democracy, majority rules. Yet even in that instance, Cody did what he wanted, even though he was outnumbered. It doesn't feel like a democracy to me, and there are many times Robin is prioritized. Yet here she is talking about sacrificing for the needs of the sister wives and offering up what you want for them, putting their needs ahead of your own, and putting the family first. Yet Robin always gets what she wants. The first rental, they moved to Vegas, and a contributing factor in that decision may have been that her dad worked in Vegas. They moved to Flagstaff, and a contributing factor in that move may have been Dayton's acceptance at a local college near Flagstaff. When Mary wanted to go back to school and she let Robin know she would have to put less time and effort into Robin's dream of My Sister Wives closet, Robin was pissed because she wanted to have more kids. And if Mary cut back the effort and time she put into My Sister Wives closet to follow her dream of going to school and fulfilling herself, Robin wouldn't have been able to have more kids at that time. And Robin's own needs and wants superseded her encouragement of Mary in accomplishing her dream. And she wasn't happy for Mary or encouraging of Mary to go do something that fulfills her in furthering her education. It was all about Robin and how it would affect her and what she wants. When Mary lovingly helped the best she could with My Sister Wives closet so that Robin could have an attempt at her dream. Robin wasn't encouraging at all. She was pissed about how it would affect her and what she wants. Robin can say a lot of words that sound great, but do her actions and behaviors match her words? I don't think so. When Mary started the inn, Robin wasn't eager to help in any way. During the pandemic, when Mary was following Cody's ridiculous COVID mandates and she lived alone and was lonely, posing no risk, Cody told Robin it was fine to have Mary over. And Robin never invited her when Mary was desperate to connect with her family and to see people and to interact with the kids. Mary is very social. She needs people and affection and interaction to thrive. And she lived alone and she followed Cody's ridiculous rules. And Cody approved Mary coming over to Robin's, but Robin still didn't invite Mary over for almost a year. And then when she finally invited Mary, she said she hadn't invited her so far because she didn't want the other wives to get mad. And the other wives were already hanging out independent of the family and they had zero interest in going to Robin's. And they also assumed that this whole time Mary was interacting with Robin. But Mary was very alone and isolated, and when confronted, Robin concocted a bullshit excuse. She didn't want Mary there. She was either overly paranoid about COVID or she wanted Cody all to herself, and she allowed Mary to feel alone. Is that really looking out for her sister wife and putting her sister wife's needs and wants ahead of her own? Or is it prioritizing Robin's own wants and needs no matter what? Robin showed no regard for Mary or her well-being, and even Christine and Janelle were shocked to learn Mary wasn't welcomed at Robin's for all of that time, that she was alone all of that time. And that was a shitty bullshit excuse, in my opinion, that Robin didn't want to upset Janelle and Christine, who aren't interested in going to her house anyway. Christine is really stressed out right now. There are only 2 weeks until Mary and Christine have to move out of the vacation rental, and there is nothing opening up at all in the rental market so far. Kelty is wearing a tank top that Robin and Christine are fussing over because they think it's too revealing. Christine says McKelty wasn't happy with the move, and her way of acting out has always been modesty. So, to express her frustration, rather than using her words, McKelty uses her clothing. In my opinion, I don't think McKelty wears tank tops to act out. She's a teenager. Teenagers like to wear tank tops or shorts or clothes the modesty police would find too revealing. It's normal for any teen to express themselves in that way. And I don't think she's doing it specifically as a sign of rebellion, but I don't know. In my opinion, that's normal for any teenager. Now, Christine explains she doesn't want to see anything too low or too high. Mary jokes Mykelti thinks 2 feet of shirt is all it needs to be. Christine says Mykelti has 4 other parents going after her regarding her clothing. Mykelti bends down to help Mary unpack. Mary demands she put on another shirt. She demands, go find another shirt. I don't want to see that much of your body. Mary tells Mykelti she loves her, but she needs her to find a different shirt. I saw Mykelti's shirt that they are fussing over, and that would be considered very modest most places actually. There's nothing inappropriate about it. There's no cleavage, and if there is, it's like a very, very minuscule amount. It's nothing. So I don't know what the issue is. I also do understand that they are more conservative, and they have to be modest. Mykelti says she will get mad at her parents sometimes, so she will wear what she wants, even though she knows they will get mad about it. Mary says people wear a different attire in Vegas and in Salt Lake. Janelle says in Utah, the children were conservative, and the parents of those children were all conservative. Cody says now that they're in Vegas, they're concerned about the influences on their kids. Robin says in Vegas, there are a lot more choices and there are things the kids have never seen. Robin says it sparks curiosity, and so the kids have to go to school and decide where they stand. Mykelti says she doesn't like people telling her what to do or to change herself. Robin says the teen girls don't realize that when they have certain things showing, that is a huge message to boys out there. Robin says you don't get it as a teen, and you don't get it till you are married, and maybe even then you don't get it. As Robin is saying this, Maddie is standing next to her, and she has her arms crossed, and she is side-eyeing the shit out of Robin. Robin says they're beautiful girls, and she goes to playfully put her arm around Maddie, and Maddie has a look on her face like, please do not touch me. They have just 2 weeks left in the vacation home. Robin found a home, and Janelle as well, and they're getting nervous about what they're going to do. Cody can't ask Mary or Christine to just settle for any house because Robin and Janelle both got the homes they really wanted. Christine isn't just going to settle. She wants to be able to settle in and settle down, and she wants to have exactly what she wants, like 5 bedrooms. She wants to be close to the rest of the family. She wants her kids to all be enrolled in the same school as the other kids. Christine says there's a lot she wants, and there are certain things she deserves to have. Mona says finding Christine's house has been the most difficult. They've already committed to Robin and Janelle's homes, so Mona needs to find a rental close to theirs with a lot of bedrooms. And finally, she found something that will work. And Christine says God loves them. They moved Christine into her new house. They left Utah in such a hurry that they left most of their stuff there. So they went back to go get the remaining furniture. Robin says traveling to Salt Lake was difficult, but they had to go back and it made her sad. But Robin and Mary went back to get all the remaining stuff and the pets who were left behind with family members. Mary says when she and Robin first met, there was definitely a connection between them. Robin says she gets to have the love of her life with Cody, but she also gets a really cool relationship with a sister wife. Mary says to some people it would look like Robin is coming in, playing the mistress part and being the homewrecker, and she isn't. Mykelti is putting a cat in a crate on a piece of cardboard, and Robin tells Mykelti if the cat has to pee, it will soak right through, and Mykelti says Mariah is a blonde apparently. It was their idea. Robin points out that Mykelti is a blonde too. Mary says in the past year, her relationship with Robin has been a roller coaster ride. She says in the process of Cody and Robin's courtship, that's where she started her downward spiral. Mary felt like she had done her duty. She introduced Cody and Robin, and now they were an item. And Mary felt as if she was not needed anymore. Robin says her relationships with her future sister wives got neglected. Mary tells Robin in confessional when they first met and they had that connection, Mary was really excited for the prospect of having a close bond with a sister wife, and she saw that close sister-wife bond going away as Robin and Cody got more solidified. Mary says she was struggling with some jealousies at the time. In the Browns' memoir, we learn that initially Mary connected with Robin, and she introduced Cody to Robin because she liked her. And we also learn that Robin was Mary and Cody's secret for quite some time. So Mary supported Cody in pursuing Robin. When Cody wanted to talk about Robin, he could only talk to Mary because it was their secret alone, special for just Cody and Mary. Janelle and Christine didn't know initially about Robin, and it was at a point where Cody and Mary were struggling in their marriage. So Mary enjoyed having the secret between herself and Cody, and it got her attention, in my opinion, and it made them closer. Since it was a secret, Cody could only discuss with Mary. Robin was a secret between Cody and Mary for a while, and Janelle and Christine weren't in the loop. I think Mary used Robin and the secret to get Cody's attention, and she encouraged the courtship, probably thinking it might head nowhere. It's just speculation on my part. Cody is adamant in the book about not wanting to marry a divorced woman with kids because he wasn't wanting to raise another man's kids, and he vowed never to do it, and he felt very strongly about it, and Mary knew that, of course. Robin was seen as damaged goods in the church community, being a divorcee of a high-status family in the church. Her husband was a high-status member of the church, and she divorced him, so in their community, she was the disgraced one, even though obviously that's not the case. You're not a disgrace if you get a divorce. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make you less than, and no one should treat you that way. That's wrong. And it definitely doesn't mean that you're damaged goods or that you have less to offer or anything like that. I think Mary felt that if Cody accepted Robin with her status in the community as a divorcee, then Robin would feel indebted to Mary, and Mary maybe assumed that she and Robin would be close, and Robin would feel grateful to her and be an ally to her in the house. When Robin and Cody were solid, Robin probably paid Mary less and less attention. Her focus was Cody, and Mary felt like she expected a friend and a sister wife and like a sisterhood with Robin since she got her on board. And I think Robin stopped focusing on Mary once she secured Cody. And she was kind to Mary initially to get what she wanted, and Mary was pushing things with Robin and Cody to gain an ally in the house. And also she enjoyed having that attention from Cody so they could whisper about their secret away from Janelle and Christine. And then once that secret was out in the open, Cody no longer gave Mary that attention and status that the secret brought her. Robin also gave Mary less time and focus because she obviously secured things. And Robin admits in the book she was interested in the husband and romantic love, and her marriage was her priority above having sister wives, and her relationship was a priority above the family and above having sister wives. She was most interested in the husband. Once Robin got Cody, she was less focused on Mary, and Mary felt initially that it was very genuine, and she wondered where the friendship with Robin went. In my opinion, Mary was manipulated. They play a flashback of Cody and Robin's sexcation honeymoon in San Diego. Mary thinks she has worked through those jealousies that she had about Robin, and she thinks she and Robin were working on their relationship and building their relationship, and they were both realizing what they wanted out of the relationship and how to get there. By the time the investigation was announced, Mary thinks that she and Robin were at a place with each other where they could handle it better and be more supportive of each other. Robin says she and Mary were at a good place when that happened, and she says the police investigation shook their family. And some families would break away. They would fall apart, but the Browns didn't fall apart. They got stronger with each other. They went inward into a tight bubble of protecting the kids and each other and being there for each other. When one family member was really struggling with the investigation, they were all there for that person. Mary tells Robin on the confessional couch This is the kind of relationship that she has always wanted with a sister wife. It's deep and real and it's cool, Mary says. Is Robin the sister wife Mary always wanted? Is it deep and real and cool? Was it deep and real and cool when Robin knew Mary was chomping at the bit to socialize and see some of the kids in the family, maybe see Cody, see some of the other family members in Robin's household? And Robin waited almost a year to extend an invite, giving a bullshit excuse. Was it deep and real and cool when Robin was pissed Mary was going back to school, and she was pissed because Mary would have less time to spend on My Sister Wives closet because it messed with Robin's plans to have kids? It seems like a one-sided sisterhood, and Mary is so lonely and desperate to be appreciated and seen that she doesn't see it. What about the divorce? Mary sacrificed her legal wife status so Cody could adopt Robin's kids. And Mary's well-being wasn't a priority to Robin during COVID. She knew Mary was lonely and she still made excuses. She knew Mary wasn't a risk. Mary lived alone and Mary agreed to follow Cody's C-19 protocol, no hesitation. I think Robin is a person who gets what she wants and who does what she wants. And I think if she wanted Mary over, Mary would have been invited over and there wouldn't be this excuse. But that's just my opinion. Robin wanted Mary there genuinely, she would be. Robin doesn't accept not having what she wants. I don't think she cared about Mary. I don't think she really wanted her there. If it was deep and real and cool, maybe Robin would have. Mary found a house for her, and it's just before the end of the month. And I love how in this episode they film Mona in the same hair and makeup and clothes, driving around like she has found each wife's home on that day in the exact same outfit. Was it really necessary to film that? They found the house 10 days before their lease was up at the vacation rental. Mary's house was over a mile away from the other houses that were all within blocks of each other in walking distance. Mary loves the house. It's an open floor plan. It has a living room and a family room and a dining room. Lots of space, and there are 3 bedrooms, so it's perfect for Mary and Leo. Cody explains he had to take a chill pill. He's frustrated because Mary and Leo's rent will cost as much as Christine's or Janelle's, and they're housing bigger families. Cody says he has to deal with this issue, and it was all about this emotional conflict with himself trying to be fiscally responsible and trying to justify in his head the amount of money because there's another much cheaper house right next to Robin's rental. Cody's explaining this in confessional with all of his wives present. Robin looks angry at Cody. Mary is crying. Cody asks Mary in a shocked and frustrated tone, "Are you taking this personal?" as if Mary is ridiculous to be crying. Christine interjects that she would take it personal. Cody asks, why did Mary get a place that expensive with only one child? Christine is glaring at Cody, and even Janelle, who usually tries not to show emotion, looks pissed off during this confessional scene because all of the wives see how insensitive Cody is being. Cody says that he is afraid a wife will say that to him. He is afraid of a wife saying that to him. Can we imagine his wives saying, why did Mary get a place that expensive with only one child, knowing how much it hurts Mary that she didn't have a house full of kids? Not because of a lack of want. She wants it so bad and she feels like her body betrayed her. So for Cody to say that, it's like so insensitive and just mean. Janelle says Mary logically knew she should get a smaller house that costs less. And she tried finding that smaller, cheaper house for 2 weeks and she couldn't. But Janelle says ultimately, regardless of the economic give and take, everyone has to do. Mary still deserved a home that was important to her. I love that Janelle stood up for Mary because we know that there's a lot of tension between them. There's a lot of resentment. But here she saw how insensitive Cody was being, and she stepped in. And she's very practical. She's very economical. To her, it's probably like, wow, we're spending the same amount, and she has one child and I have five. But she knows Mary really would have loved to be able to fill a 5-bedroom house, and it's really not even that much bigger than what she would need. It's not like it's a mansion. It's a 3-bedroom house. She needs a bedroom for herself and a bedroom for Mariah, and she just has a guest bedroom. It's not some sprawling mansion. It's just a spare bedroom, and it's fair that all the wives get the same, honestly, in my opinion. Mary says the fact that she has less kids, it seems like she doesn't deserve as many perks as everyone else in the family. Robin says she doesn't think any of them feel that way at all. Robin thinks it's something Mary feels because it's such a lack in her life. It's not just about perks, it's about Mary wanting more kids and wishing she had more kids, Robin says. Mary is crying, and I think Cody was fucked up and cruel and insensitive to throw in Mary's face that he is having a hard time spending as much on Mary with one child for rent as he does for Christine or Janelle, who each have 6 kids. That probably feels like a slap in the face to Mary, and that's the part that upset Mary and made her cry, because it's her dream to have lots of kids, and she struggled to have just one, and after that she had an unexpected miracle, and that ended in a miscarriage. So she only had just one, and she struggled as her sister wives had child after child. And now Cody is using the dream Mary wishes she could achieve with everything inside her, but she couldn't do it physically. And the fact that she has one kid, Cody using that to shame her for picking a house with an extra bedroom that would cost the same as Christine and Janelle per month, who each have 6 kids. It's cruel, it's insensitive, it's rude, and that's not the way that a husband should act with a wife, especially something that tears them to pieces that they wish so hard could have been different in their life. This is a very sensitive thing for Mary. She feels like her body betrayed her. And then to hear stuff like this from your husband, I mean, what a fucking nightmare. Mary feels betrayed by her body, and in her heart, she really wishes that she could 5 bedrooms with kids, and Cody just threw in her face that she has 1 kid, so her rent shouldn't be the same as the wives with 6 kids. And financially and economically, I understand as far as the money and the budget, it would be nice maybe if she picked something cheaper. But in my opinion, she shouldn't. She should get the home that makes her happy, regardless what the cost is, as long as it's fair for every wife. But in my opinion, every wife, regardless of the amount of kids they have, should get the same financially. In my opinion, if Mary picked a cheaper 2-bedroom rental, then she should have gotten the difference. Every wife should get the same. So if one wife has 6 kids and another has 1, I don't think the other wife should get less. If she chose to have a smaller home, that wife should still have the same budget and the difference back. Otherwise, how is it really fair for everyone if everyone doesn't get the same? And to my knowledge, the way polygamy is supposed to work in the FLDS, every wife gets the same. And if they choose something less expensive than another wife, like a smaller home, they would then get the difference back to do with as they see fit. I think that's the only fair way to do things in a situation like this. And I think Cody needs to think before he speaks. I get his point about the finances, but Mary still deserves the difference, whether she had rented a smaller house or not. Otherwise, it's not really fair. And to use the excuse that it doesn't make sense for him because the rent is the same to his wives who have 6 kids is cruel, because Mary wishes she could have 6 kids herself. She wishes she needed a 5-bedroom house. She wishes she could fill every bedroom. But Cody doesn't think about anyone but himself. He has no awareness or forethought about other people's feelings at all. I'm glad even Janelle, who hates extra spending, stood up for Mary. Mary says it would be nice to have had more kids, but it's not in her cards. So she knows it doesn't make sense to have a bigger house. Cody was opposed to Mary getting the 3-bedroom rental, thinking it's not right for him to pay the same rent for Mary with 1 kid as he did for Janelle and Christine with 6 kids each. Then Cody realized he was being a jerk. Or maybe Robin insisted that Cody has to be fair and shut his effing mouth. Christine explains when Mary walked into her house, she was envisioning the whole family gathering there. There was enough space for family gatherings in Mary's house. And Mary agrees with Christine. That's what she liked about the house. The house has a huge living area for family functions. Robin says the living room sold Cody too for the same reason. Mary says she looks forward to having Thanksgiving at her place, hopefully. Mary is moving in and she's excited to settle. All the wives have their houses that they want in Vegas, and it took them 30 days. Cody asks his wives who has the best rental house. Every wife, of course, says their house is the best. Cody says in the end, he likes a house that makes it conducive for him and his wife to raise their kids in. The Browns are having a block party to meet the neighbors. They're having a potluck and hanging out, getting to know the neighbors. Cody says the worst thing that would be is if people show up and tell them what they think of their lifestyle, or if people possibly throw eggs at them, Robin suggests. Cody worries about some overzealous political or religious opposition to their lifestyle. Cody thinks they were cautious because of the polygamy stigma. Cody assumes because they are open, the whole world knows they are polygamists. And Robin says they don't know who has even seen them or knows about the show or even knows who they are. So they are still breaking ground with new people who may not know who they are. Edna is the neighbor throwing the block party. Cody refers to Edna as a straightforward person. Neighbor Edna says when she first heard the Browns were moving into the neighborhood, what she had to say was less than gracious. But Edna's daughter told her the Browns were grown people who made a conscious decision to live this lifestyle. Her daughter told Edna they shouldn't be judging the Browns for their lifestyle. Edna told Robin when she moved in, if she was yelling at one of her kids, it's because she doesn't want them playing in the street. And everyone around there calls Edna Grandma. And Robin told Edna that was awesome. That was fine. She could tell her kids to get out of the street. Janelle has lots of friends from many different faiths and walks of life, and she completely embraces them for the things that make them human, not for their beliefs. Cody wants their neighbors to feel safe with them too, and Cody says they are just looking for tolerance. I really don't think too many people would be intolerant of their lifestyle. Most of the time, I really don't think too many people would care what adults do with their life or in their lifestyle. It's not affecting them. It's not their business. They're not going to care and they're not going to be intolerant. I don't think too many people would be intolerant. Nobody cares what anyone does or how they choose to live. I don't think many people are intolerant of Cody or his wives. But I do find interesting that Cody keeps begging and pleading for tolerance and preaching about tolerance when his faith doesn't accept people of color in leadership or priesthood positions within their church. How is that tolerant? How does more or less melanin in your skin make you less worthy of leading a church? In that faith, it's to my knowledge that the leaders believe that they are connected to God. So they're basically saying a person having more melanin in their skin makes them less worthy or unable to be connected directly to God. So Cody can go on about tolerance, but his faith in itself isn't tolerant. It's exclusionary, even when it comes to who can lead in the church. He wants tolerance, but his faith itself isn't tolerant. They follow something called the Adam God doctrine that dictates this. Cody met some neighbors, and one neighbor has an older stepdaughter, and Cody assumed that was that man's wife. And Cody apologizes to the guy, and he says, usually people ask, is this your wife, to a polygamist when he has a 14-year-old wife. I've watched the show before, and I was shocked because I never clued in on Cody making this remark. And it is so disgusting. It's not funny. How do you make fun of child brides? It's a very disgusting thing. In the FLDS, young girls, 13, 14, 15, 16, are forced to marry much older men. It's disgusting and it's abuse and it's nothing to make a joke over. But it shows how Cody doesn't think before he speaks at all, ever. Is Cody considering what that 14-year-old has to go through that would be put in a child bride situation? This is not a funny joke. It's disgusting. Let's keep in mind, too, that Cody courted a minor himself, and he had to wait for her to turn 18 to do the engagement. But luckily for that young lady, she called it off. She called off the wedding a week before it was supposed to happen. That is so perverted to joke about polygamists taking child brides. It's not funny. Imagine how a 14-year-old girl would feel being forcefully married and the R word by a much older man, not even understanding what sex was or what was happening. And it's not funny at all. It's not something to joke about. It's not cute or witty or charming. It really makes me sick. And it makes me wonder what type of things Cody says when he isn't on camera. I have a feeling we would all be absolutely horrified. And this stuff goes on in their community. There is a documentary on Netflix right now that I cover that is horrifying, called Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey. And you will see this stuff happens in those communities, and it's not a fun experience for the women that have to experience this at all. Everyone is on the confessional couch talking about how Cody mistook the gentleman's stepdaughter to be his wife, and Christine says it was embarrassing, and Cody admits he does that a lot, putting his foot in his mouth with assumptions. Cody says most people are very kind to their faces, but it doesn't mean they know what those people are thinking. Rufus, the next door neighbor, says before he met the Browns, he never thought much about polygamy. He thinks if a man wants more than one wife, that's between him and God. He says Cody knows the judgment for that, and on that day, Cody will have to deal with that. Cody says they understand the Christian perspective regarding polygamy, and Cody doesn't think Jesus would condemn him in any way. He realizes it contradicts some other people's beliefs, and Cody is okay with that because everyone has to answer to God for themselves. Cody says he'll deal with that on Judgment Day. Rufus, the neighbor, says if you are saying you love multiple women, it's not love, it's lust, because you can't love multiple women and say that it's true or it's real when God gave us one woman. Rufus says God created Eve. He didn't create Eve with 3 or 4 other women for Adam. He created one woman. Robin says if this was about lust, a prostitute is so much cheaper than wives. Robin says Las Vegas is a tougher city, and when she moved into the neighborhood she knew it wasn't Utah. It's not a bunch of Mormons. It's not this easygoing country area. It's Las Vegas. In Vegas, they have a very different culture. In Vegas, Robin says when she moved into the neighborhood, she made herself not judge a single one of her neighbors because she knows what it is to be judged. It's interesting. She says she made herself not judge the neighbors. Like it took effort to not judge. It wasn't inherent in her to accept the neighbors as they were. She had to make herself. It took effort to make herself not judge them. It's interesting because in their faith, people of color can't lead in the church or hold the priesthood positions that are supposedly connected to God. And she has a melting pot of neighbors from all walks of life. And she doesn't say, I didn't judge them. She says, I made myself not judge them. Like it took effort not to. I wonder if Robin has preconceived stereotypes in her mind about people, and she has to push hard to overcome that because the way she worded this is, it took effort. She made herself. Cody says all they want is to be allowed to do it, to live their lifestyle. Cody says, "Judge us, but please allow us." No one cares to stop him. Even in Utah, yes, they investigated, but they made it clear 1,000,000 times they would not charge Cody unless there were other crimes going on. And they had no intention to break up the family, and they had no intention to put charges on Cody or any of his family for just living polygamy or a bigamy charge alone. As was Cody's situation, because they found no additional crimes being committed. There were never any charges brought, and they were never going to charge Cody solely for being a polygamist. The last time charges were brought on a polygamist family for bigamy alone, when there weren't any other crimes being committed, at that point in time when they were investigating Cody, they hadn't done that in over 50 years. Cody was allowed to live as he wished. No one was stopping them. Cody says the block party, slightly uncomfortable. The family had to go home, and every branch of the family went home separately, and it was weird. Mary explains in Utah, they would go home together and they would continue to party at home. Janelle suggests they would probably have sat around the kitchen table after getting home if they were in Utah. Cody looks forward to the day when the kids start begging him to get them all in one home again. And Christine says it's gonna happen. Janelle says even now, at this stage where they just moved, Logan and Maddie are already asking their mom if they will be in a house soon with everybody. Cody doesn't like driving from house to house every day, and he thinks it's better for the children to have their siblings close and to have him be able to see them every day. Cody doesn't think the kids are happy with it, and he isn't happy with 4 separate homes either. Mary says one of the downsides to her house is that it's a mile away from the others that are only blocks apart. Mary is nervous about it, mainly for Leo, because they like to have so much interaction with everybody else. Mary says, personally, for herself, although she loves her sister wives and she loves to see them, she likes to have her alone time too. And Mary will be spending a lot of time unpacking, so she won't have much time to chit-chat. She won't have as much time as she had in the past. Robin doesn't like Mary being so far away. She wants Mary to be closer to the family. Mary explains she didn't pick this house purposely because it was a mile away. Robin knows it wasn't intentional, but she wants to fix it. Cody suggests, let's just see what the time does. Cody doesn't think he will ever get used to living separate. He says his song he'll be singing until they are together is "When Are We Gonna Be Together?" I think it's interesting that Mary seems kind of excited for having the space and alone time. And this was around 2011 or 2012, so Mary said it was a little over 10 years ago that Cody stopped being intimate with her. And this was around that time, especially if we account for filming. Cody made the comment, let's see what the time does, as if Mary wanted time alone. And I think he stopped being intimate with Mary around this point, and it made her feel isolated and lonely, and Mary seemed to want space from the family around the time that Cody disconnected. And this would be around that time, so maybe Mary felt she needed space, particularly if Cody was pulling away from her and he was less connected with her. And that probably makes Mary go inward and not want to spend as much time with the family too, if her relationship with Cody is rocky. Janelle says in the evenings, she finds herself feeling like it's kind of quiet. Janelle is seated in her recliner writing in a journal. She has really amazing, magnificent penmanship, first of all. I totally envy it. It's really perfect, her cursive. I'm nosy, so I read what she wrote, and it says, just when I think I have learned the lesson that God has tried to teach me, he squeezes out the last of the toothpaste, or actually whipped cream container, and he puts the cherry on top of the lesson. I had begun to see that I really had to be on the same page with the family in terms of doing and then I couldn't make out that word, blank, with the whole family. And I found myself the few weeks getting very, very mean with Cody and calling or yelling. I can't make out which word it is because there's a page obscuring, but it's either calling or yelling. And calling or yelling 4 times a day for no reason. I finally talked with Blank and she helped me sort things out. That, and I finally realized Cody was at this very low point himself. I think I actually had to really mourn all I had left behind and all that had changed. I had been desperately clinging to this idea of getting a business going immediately to stave off the loss of my other situation. I think I really have bottomed out now. I have accepted my loss. Also, I realized I need to have a side project I am working on. I think that's really interesting. Janelle says she was hoping to immediately start a business to stave off the loss of the life that she knew, and she liked her job. She had a really good government job apparently in Utah, and she had to leave her job. So she wants to immediately throw herself into work because that's what her fulfillment comes from. We just finished, coincidentally, the first part of her chapter 6 in the book, Becoming Sister Wives, and she talks about really valuing her work, having a strong work ethic, and work for her is what she enjoys. She's very ambitious. She gets fulfillment and enjoyment out of working. It fulfills her a great deal more than anything else in her life. So immediately she wants to jump into doing a business, and she lost her really good government job that she really enjoyed, that really fulfilled her. So she probably had a lot more to lose even than the other wives, because she was leaving something behind that she valued a great deal. Not that they all didn't value their lives, but I mean, Janelle's main fulfillment comes from her job, and she had a really good job that she really enjoyed. I think for Janelle, her work and her career is also tied to her self-esteem. It's not only her fulfillment, but it's her self-esteem and her happiness and all those things. So she needs to work. And so it's a huge loss for her. Elle is alone, writing in her journal, lamenting the quiet at her house. And at Christine's house, she is leading her kids in a prayer. Christine asks, are we going to put forth the effort that it is going to take to stay united together too? And Christine doesn't know. With having 4 separate houses, Mary likes the focus time that she and Cody have now. And Christine asks, is it better to have Cody there focused, staying in one place, just there fully focused, but to see him less? Or is it better to see Cody more sporadically over a few days? And Christine is leaning towards preferring seeing Cody 1 out of 4 days, but having that time be more focused. Janelle is listening to what Mary and Christine are saying in confessional, and she is very worried that they won't want to live next to each other again. Christine loves having her own space, and Mary loves the me time. Christine also loves the routine she is developing with her kids. They say nighttime prayers every single night at her house. Cody tells Christine and Mary they feel like he is giving them more by having them this far apart from each other, and Mary and Christine agree with that. And Cody asks, really? And Christine and Mary agree again, and Cody says it scares the heck out of him that both Christine and Mary are more comfortable in their separate homes. Cody isn't comfortable with it. He says it seems like separate families on a level, and Cody wants his family to be one family all together. Cody and Robin have big news now that they're in Vegas. Little after they moved, Robin got a pregnancy test to see where things were at, and they were pregnant. And Cody was holding the test, and when he saw the result, he had tears running down his face. Cody announces they have a bun in the oven in confessional. They're expecting a baby in October. Cody and Robin haven't told anyone in the family. They've kept it a secret. And Cody says it's a fun secret to have. But you want to tell everybody. They have to make the announcement to the family with the news. Robin is hoping that everyone is excited about the news. And she is super excited. But Robin is also worried about Mary taking the news hard. Robin says it's hard to hold it in because she is so happy about it. She says Mary has always wanted to have more children, but her body wouldn't let her. And it's painful for Mary, especially every time when she has to hear about a sister wife being pregnant. Robin plans to go to Mary's before the dinner, where they will hopefully announce the pregnancy, but Robin wants to talk to Mary first and reinforce the announcement to her with love and understanding. Robin says her relationship with Mary has improved so much over the past year, and Robin wants to rejoice with Mary over the news. She wants to shop for baby clothes with Mary and do cool things with her, and she wants Mary to be excited too. Mary answers the door for Robin so Robin can break the news to Mary. She comes to her house early before the dinner. You see all the food laid out on the kitchen island. It looks beautiful. And right before Mary is about to have the whole family at her house for a dinner, Robin is going to break this news to her, and she's not going to have the time to process it. The episode ends before we see their conversation. And Robin says, a baby can be a reminder of the intimacy between your husband and his other wife. Robin asks Mary if she has a minute. She's working in the kitchen. Mary has a minute. The dinner is at her house, and I guess Robin is expecting to make her announcement at this dinner at Mary's house. So she came early to talk to Mary. So basically, Mary will have no time to process. She will be told, and she will then have the family over immediately after. The food is already all in the kitchen. It's all ready to go. And she will have to smile through this announcement no matter how she feels because she won't have the time to process it. I don't understand why Robin couldn't have told Mary and then done her own gathering to make this announcement after Mary has had time to process it. This kind of forces Mary to shove down her feelings. It's a family get-together. Mary has already cooked. She's already expecting the whole family to come in a short amount of time. And Robin comes a few minutes early to spring this news on Mary while also planning to announce it at her dinner for the family. So Mary has to process it, but also process it in just a few minutes before the whole family shows up at her house and she has company. And then it's going to be announced and she has to hear about it again and hear everybody talk about it. And that makes it extra hard on Mary because she hasn't had any time to process it. It's kind of insensitive for her to expect to announce this news at Mary's dinner and only tell her a few minutes before. And of course, Mary's going to act happy no matter how she feels on the inside. But it would be nice if it was, first of all, wasn't done in Mary's house. Second of all, that Robin wasn't just ambushing Mary's dinner with this. And she's only giving her a matter of minutes to know the news and cope with it before the whole family comes over. And I think that's really putting Mary in a shitty situation for her to handle her own emotions and how she feels about this. It's weird to me, and it's like she's pretending to be sensitive, but it's very insensitive because she's telling Mary like barely a few minutes before everybody's going to show up, and then she wants to hijack the dinner and make it about her and make the announcement at Mary's dinner. So Mary has to hear about it and hear everyone's reaction to it while she still hasn't really been able to sit with herself and process this when it's a very hard thing for her. I just think it's like rubbing salt in the wound, and I think it's really insensitive the way that Robin handled it. Robin is nervous, and Mary asks if it's a private talk they need to have, and Robin says yes, and the episode ends. Now, if you know someone struggles because they wanted more kids, and it's a very sensitive subject for them, and it brings up a lot of emotions, and it's a stressful time for everyone, and Mary has cooked this huge dinner and invited the family to her house, who will be arriving shortly, how does Robin find it respectful and sensitive to show up maybe 10 minutes early to tell Mary and then hijack Mary's dinner by announcing it there? At first I thought, cool, Robin is being sensitive. She's going to talk to Mary about this. She gets it. But no, Mary made a family dinner at her place. She cooked the food. The food is laid out. And 10 minutes before the family arrives, Robin wants to go tell Mary and say that she's being sensitive and expect Mary to process it. And then also she wants to announce it at Mary's dinner. I don't think it's okay. And I would tell Mary way before this, and then give her a few weeks to come to terms with this. And I would announce it, and not at a family dinner at Mary's house when that wasn't the plan and she wasn't cooking and slaving away at this dinner for the family for me to do this announcement and I'm just going to spring this on her. It was really, I felt like it was almost disrespectful at points and very insensitive. On top of that, Robin is telling her like 5 minutes before people arrive, and then she's just expecting that she's going to announce it. I think it's selfish. I think it's bad timing. I don't think it was done in the right way for Mary to take time to adjust and cope and grieve, because every time someone gets pregnant around her, you know, she is reminded of what she wishes she could have, but she can't. And then she probably questions her place in the family, having just one child. And she also feels betrayed by her body. It's a lot to process and cycle through every time somebody gets pregnant. And Robin is giving Mary like 5 or 10 minutes to process and shove this down and compartmentalize. And then she has like 20 plus people coming over. And also Robin wants to announce it on top of all things. I don't think that's how you treat your sister or your sister wife. It feels overbearing. It feels very insensitive to me. Anyways, that does it for this episode of My Sister Wives Rewatch. To my YouTube viewers, please like and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts on Sister Wives in the comments section. Next week, I'll be back with the next episode of Becoming Sister Wives Book Club, covering the second half of Chapter 6 on Janelle. I'll also be back next week for the next episode of My Sister Wives Rewatch Season 3, Episode 1, the announcement, that's going to be a good one, and the next episode of Seeking Sister Wife, Season 4, Episode 7. See you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.